I am starting with the front pattern and I have the shoulder line, the chest line and the waist line. I have a button allowance of 1 inch by the side of the paper. Shoulder to the chest line is 8.5 inches and to the waist line is at 18 inches. I'll go ahead and mark the shoulder measurements divided by 2. I'll mark that on the shoulder line and also on the chest line, and I'll connect with a straight line. Next, I'll go in with a neck width of 3.5 and a neck depth of 9.5, and I'll connect that into a V neckline. Next, I'll come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope and I'll connect with a straight line into the neck width. From the shoulder slope, I'll divide what I have left into 2 and get the midpoint. At the midpoint, I'll go in by 0.75. On the chest line, I'll mark the bust measurements divided by 4 and I'll connect the 3 points together to form the armhole. Next, on the waistline, I'll go in with the waist measurements divided by 4 and I'll add 1 inch allowance for that, and I'll connect the points together with my curved ruler. The next step is to go ahead and mark the bust line. From the shoulder to the bust line of the measurement I am working with is 11 inches, and I'll connect that into a straight line. On the bust line, I'll go in with the nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2. For mine, it is 4 inches. I'll mark that on the bust line and on the waist line. I added 1 inch allowance for that. I'll go ahead and mark ½ inch on both sides of the dart leg on the waistline and I'll connect to the top like so. The next is to mark the bust darts. The difference between my front and the back half length is 2 inches, and that is what I marked here as the bust dart, and I'll connect with a straight line to the bust point. Now from the waistline, I'll extend this pattern by 2 inches. I don't want the length of this top to stop at the waistline. I want to extend it by 2 inches. So from the waistline, I'll mark 2 inches and I'll connect that into a straight line. And connect the side slantly like you see me doing. Don't make it straight, just make it slant a bit. From the center line, I'll go in by 3 inches, and from that 3 inches mark, I'll come down by 4 inches. Now I'll connect from the side to the 4 inches mark at the bottom, and also I'll connect from the center line to the 4 inches mark. Remember, there is a button allowance on the side, so this line has to extend to the button allowance. I am just going to reconnect that to meet the button allowance there. And also for the neckline, I am also going to connect it to meet the button allowance. I'm just putting the number of buttons that will be on this waistcoat. Now at the bottom, I'll extend the nipple to nipple measurement to this bottom line and I'll connect like you see me doing. I'll be making use of the armhole princess darts for this waistcoat. So from the shoulder slope there, I'll mark 4 inches, and from that 4 inches point, I'll connect with a curve to meet the bust point, and I'll tighten the armhole with 1 inch and reconnect back to the bust point. Now to tighten the neckline, because if we don't tighten the neckline, it is going to gape, I'll get the midpoint and I'll connect from the midpoint to the dart line on the armhole. I'll tighten it with ½ inch and I'll connect to the same point. All the parts I shaded will be cut out. The front pattern is done now, so I'll cut it out. First, I am cutting through the dart line on the neckline and also the bust dart. Before I continue cutting, I forgot to replace the 1 inch dart we used to tighten the armhole there. You have to replace it back, otherwise there will be shortage at this point by the time we are joining it back. So I'll cut through to the end of the paper, but not entirely. I am putting a gum on the paper and I will just close the neckline like you see me doing. So after closing, you will notice that the line is not straight again, but this time around I'll come in with a curve. I don't want a straight V, I want the V to be a bit curvy, so I'm just going to connect like you see me doing. I'll close the bust dart here and I'll remark the side to make it straight. Before you cut out the rest of the pattern, please label it in a way that you will understand. You can point arrows to face the part where the pattern will join together. Just label your pattern in a way that you will understand by the time you transfer it to fabric. After cutting, this is what your pattern should look like. For the back, I have the shoulder line, the chest line and the waist line. Shoulder to the chest line is 8.5 inches and to the waist line is at 16 inches. The first thing I'm going to do is to tighten the center back with 0.75. On the waistline, I'll go in by 0.75 and I'll connect to the top and bottom. Next, I'll mark a neck depth of 1 inch and a neck width of 3.5 inches and I'll connect with a curve. The next thing is to go in with the shoulder measurements divided by 2. I'll mark that on the shoulder line and also on the chest line and I'll connect with a straight line. I'll come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope and I'll connect that into the neck width. Next, on the chest line, I'll go in with the bust measurements divided by 4. From the shoulder slope, I'll divide what I have left into 2 and get the midpoint. At the midpoint, I'll go in by 0.5 and I'll connect those 3 points together to form the armhole. On the waistline, I'll go in with the waist measurements divided by 4 and I'll add 1 inch allowance for that and I'll connect the points together. On the waistline, I'll go in with the nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2. I'll mark that there, and on the chest line, I'll come down by 1 inch and also mark it and connect into a straight line. I'll come out by ½ inch on both sides of the dart leg on the waistline and I'll connect to the top like you see me doing. Just like we extended from the waistline by 2 inches for the front pattern, I'll do the same thing to this back pattern and I'll connect that into a straight line. And for the side, I'll just go ahead and connect slantly like you see me doing. Now I will extend the dart leg on the waistline to this new line that we have here. That is all on the back pattern. I'll cut it out now. After cutting, you can cross-check your side front and the side back to see if it matches up properly. This is what you should have. Both the side front and the side back should be equal on the side after cutting. These are my front patterns and I have transferred to fabric. I added ½ inch all around the patterns, the top, the bottom, the armhole, but for the side front I added 1 inch allowance. And I have cut out my lining piece also. For this front, I'm using the same fabric as the main fabric and the lining. For the back pattern, I have also transferred to fabric. I added ½ inch allowance all around, and for the side, I added 1 inch. I have cut out my lining piece for the back also. Take note of the length of the dart you are going to take on this back pattern. So measure out the length and you can notch the dart points on the fabric. The first thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and stitch the center back with ½ inch. And after stitching the center back, I'll go ahead and stitch the darts in place on the lining. I'll do the same thing for the main fabric. I'll join the center back together first and go ahead and stitch the darts in place. For my front pieces, I'll take out the pattern and take out my lining piece also. I'll join the main fabric together first. I'll be adding interfacing to my lining piece, so I'll go ahead and do that off camera, but this is the main fabric I am joining together here. Take one piece of the side front and join it to the center front. Make sure that the right side is facing each other. Then you go ahead and stitch with ½ inch. I'll do the same thing on the other side. The right side facing each other, pin it together and go ahead and sew with ½ inch. This is my front lining on the table here. I had it interfacing to it, and this is after I was done stitching. I have pressed the seam flat. Please notch and press your seam flat after stitching. This is the back lining, and I only had it interfacing to the neckline area. The next step is to go ahead and join on the shoulder. I will join the front and the back shoulder together with 1/2 inch. This is my main fabric, both the front and the back on the table. I'll do the same thing I did with the lining. I'll go ahead and join the shoulder together with 1/2 inch. I am done joining here, and the next step is to place the main fabric on the lining piece, right side facing each other, and I'll go ahead and join the armhole together. So I'll go ahead and stitch the armhole in place. So just run a stitch on the armhole on both sides. I am done stitching the armhole here. Please notch all around the armhole and trim any excess you have there. Do the same thing for the other side. After I was done stitching the armhole, I also went ahead to stitch around the neckline from the front all the way to the back and back to the front. So notch all the points, all the sharp points, notch it and trim any excess you have. I'll turn it to the right side now. While stitching the armhole, you can add hemming gum to it so that by the time you press it, it will stay nice and flat and the lining won't be showing on the right side. After turning, I will take it to the ironing table and press it properly. After pressing, I'll bring it back and show you. I am done pressing it here, and you can see what we have. That is why I always emphasize on pressing while sewing. The next step is to close the bottom part of both the front and the back. I'll turn it to the wrong side and stitch with 1/2 inch. I'll do the same thing on the other side of the front. Turn it to the wrong side and go ahead and stitch. For the back, I am just going to push the front pieces into it like this and go ahead and run a stitch on it. Please make sure that anywhere you have joining or the dart line on the main fabric matches that of the lining while joining. You can also add hemming gum to the bottom while pressing. The next step is to join the sides of the waistcoat. I added 1 inch allowance to the side while transferring to fabric, but I will only use 1/2 inch to join it so that there can be ease on this waistcoat. I am done joining here, and I went ahead to overlock it to finish it up. So this is what the waistcoat is looking like. The last step is to fix the button and the buttonhole. The buttonhole will be on the right side and the button will be on the left side. You can do a space of 3 inches in between each of the buttons like I'm doing here, and your buttonhole will be on the right side. Thank you guys for watching. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, leave a comment, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. Please turn on your notification bell so you'll get notified anytime I upload a new video. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.